There is exactly one warship in the history of the United States Navy that has ever deployed to an active combat zone with swimming pools on its deck. 1. In over 200 years of naval warfare. And it was not some luxury vessel or a converted cruise ship. It was a World War II battleship with 9 16-inch guns, 25-inch guns, and the ability to put a shell through a concrete bunker from 20 miles away. The USS New Jersey sailed to Vietnam in 1968 with 2 pools built into empty anti-aircraft gun tubs, painted light blue, filled with purified boiler water, and positioned right next to the bridge of the ship. The captain who ordered them built was a former submarine officer with a master's in nuclear physics from MIT who had never commanded a surface warship in his life. Over the next 4 months, he would fire 12 million pounds of ordnance into Vietnam, save a surrounded Marine outpost with 1,700 rounds in a single night, cable sarcastic responses to enemy propaganda, host combat soldiers for hot showers and birthday cake, and refuse medical evacuation for his own surgery because he would not leave his crew. The Pentagon shut the ship down a year later, not because she failed, because she worked too well. By 1967, the USS New Jersey had been sitting in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard for a decade, mothballed, forgotten. Her last combat action was off the coast of Korea in the early 1950s. She had been built in 1943 at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, served as the flagship for both Admiral Raymond Spruance and Admiral William Bull Halsey in the Pacific, survived Typhoon Cobra, shelled Okinawa and the Japanese home islands, and then just sat there, rusting at the dock while the Navy moved on to aircraft carriers and guided missiles. Meanwhile in Vietnam, American troops were getting hammered. The military needed naval gunfire support, and they needed it badly. The cruisers on the gun line off the Vietnamese coast could reach about 15 miles inland with their 8-inch guns. Useful, sure. But Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara's analysts at the Pentagon ran the numbers and came back with a surprising conclusion. The battleship was significantly harder to damage and less vulnerable than the 8-inch cruiser. The New Jersey's 16-inch guns could reach nearly twice as far and hit 8 times harder than anything else the Navy could put offshore, and reactivating her would cost less per shell delivered than keeping the cruisers on station. So, in August 1967, the Navy towed the New Jersey out of her grave at the Philadelphia shipyard and gave the job of bringing her back to life to a captain nobody outside the submarine community had ever heard of. Captain J. Edward Snyder, Jr. was a 1944 Naval Academy graduate with a master's degree in nuclear physics from MIT. He had worked on Polaris missile reentry systems for Lockheed. He was a submarine guy, not a battleship guy. None of that mattered. On January 18, 1968, Snyder gathered his prospective officers in a briefing room in Philadelphia and delivered a line that would define the entire deployment. "Gentlemen, let there be no doubt in your minds. New Jersey will be a battleship and nothing less." He meant it. While other officers might have cut corners on a rushed reactivation, Snyder demanded that all 9 16-inch guns work. All 25-inch guns. Every boiler. Every engine. He brought back the ship's bugler. He told the crew they did not have to wear hats on the weather decks, because the concussion from the guns would just blow them off anyway. Congress had authorized $27 million for the reactivation. The Philadelphia Naval Shipyard spent only about $21 million. On March 26, 1968, just 13 months after she was towed out of mothballs, the New Jersey went to sea for full power trials and hit 35.2 knots for 6 straight hours. It set a Guinness World Record as the fastest battleship ever built. She was recommissioned on April 6, 1968. At the recommissioning ceremony, when it was Snyder's turn to speak, he did something nobody expected. He physically turned the podium 90 degrees away from the important guests and the admirals on the pier and faced the fantail of the ship where the families of his crew were sitting. That gesture told you everything you needed to know about how this man would run his ship. Now here's where the pools come in. During the reactivation at the Philadelphia shipyard, all 20 of the ship's 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns were stripped out. They were World War II technology, completely useless against modern jet aircraft. The guns were gone. The circular steel tubs they sat in on the 0-1 level of the superstructure were not. Snyder noticed those empty gun tubs sitting on either side of the bridge, one on the port side, one on the starboard side. And he had an idea. He ordered both tubs painted light blue on the inside, sealed up, plumbed with piping, and filled with purified boiler feed water from the ship's engineering plant. The result was 2 above-deck plunge pools on either side of the superstructure of a battleship heading into a war zone. When the ship reached the tropical waters of the Western Pacific and the pools were filled, the crew was skeptical. The water had a brownish tint from the boiler feed system, and nobody wanted to be the first one in. So Snyder solved the problem the way he solved most problems. He put on his swimming trunks, grabbed an air mattress, and climbed in himself. His captain's orderly stood guard on the deck above with a sidearm holstered at his hip, while the commanding officer of the most heavily armed ship in the Pacific Fleet floated around on a pool toy. The crew followed him in after that. Air Force Forward air controllers who flew spotting missions for the ship off northern Vietnam started calling her Baby Blue Eyes because of those 2 pale blue pools visible from the air. According to multiple crew accounts, even the NSA used the same nickname based on satellite imagery. The USS New Jersey had just become the only American surface warship to ever deploy to a combat zone with swimming pools on her decks. And those pools would stay right there on the 0-1 level until 1982, when they were paved over during the Reagan-era modernization to make room for Tomahawk cruise missile launchers. Gone forever. The New Jersey fired her first combat rounds in over 15 years at 7:30 in the morning on September 30th, 1968, hitting targets in and around the demilitarized zone between North and South Vietnam with 29 16-inch shells. Each one weighed as much as a small car. Over the next 120 days on the gun line, she ranged from north of the 19th parallel all the way down to Phan Thiet, supporting the 3rd Marine Division, the 101st Airborne Division, the 173rd Airborne Brigade, and half a dozen other units fighting across South Vietnam. The final numbers from that single combat tour are staggering. 5,688 16-inch rounds, 14,891 5-inch rounds, roughly 12 million pounds of ordnance. To put that in perspective, the New Jersey fired more main battery rounds during her single Vietnam deployment than she had fired in all of World War II and Korea combined. On October 14, 1968, a spotter flying from the aircraft carrier USS America radioed back after 30 minutes of 16-inch fire on Hon Mat Island off the Vietnamese coast. The New Jersey had blown away a large piece of the island. It had simply collapsed into the South China Sea. When a North Vietnamese 115mm coastal battery near Cap Lay fired on the ship a day later, the nearest enemy round splashed more than 500 yards short. Radio Hanoi claimed direct hits on the American battleship. Snyder's response was classic. He cabled back that from the bridge of the New Jersey, it appeared 6 to 12 golf balls had been driven off the Cap Lay bluff in their direction, and next time he would try to get more excited. Then came the night of February 23, 1969. A 20-man Marine outpost in the demilitarized zone found itself surrounded by an estimated 130 North Vietnamese regulars. The outpost called in naval gunfire from the New Jersey so close to their own position that the ship's fire control team initially refused the mission. The ground spotter, Lance Corporal Roger Cluse radioed back with a transmission that became legend among the crew. "They're all around me. Just aim for me." The New Jersey fired 1,710 rounds of 5-inch and 16-inch shells over the next 5 hours, including illumination star shells that turned the nighttime jungle into daylight. By dawn, the enemy had withdrawn. Every Marine in that outpost survived. Klaus received the Bronze Star. While the New Jersey was devastating enemy positions along the coast of Vietnam, life aboard the ship told a completely different story. That story was all about Snyder. The captain routinely went through the enlisted mess line on the ship's lower decks like a regular sailor and sat down at random tables in the dining hall. He asked the men about their families, their problems, their lives back home. When a sailor complained about the ship's laundry, the supply officer found out about it within minutes, not because Snyder reported it up the chain, because he fixed it on the spot. He wrote and personally edited multi-page newsletters he called Family Grams. They described the ship's combat operations in plain language, were printed aboard the New Jersey, and distributed to every single crewman to mail home, so their wives and parents and children would know where they were and what they were doing off the coast of Vietnam. Every month, Snyder held a birthday cake ceremony in the mess decks. Every sailor born that month got head-of-the-line privileges, a steak dinner, and a signed photograph from the captain. When Snyder developed a hernia while on station off Vietnam, he refused to be flown to a naval hospital in Japan. He had the ship's surgeon perform the operation right there in the sickbay aboard the New Jersey because he would not leave his crew. Days later, still in visible pain, he climbed down the steep ladders to the mess decks to cut the next month's birthday cake. And then there was Operation Hilton. Snyder directed his supply department to bring small groups of combat Marines and Army soldiers from the shore out to the New Jersey for short stays. They got hot showers in the ship's heads, haircuts from professional barbers, steak dinners in the mess hall, fresh laundry returned in 4 hours, and a decorated cake baked in the ship's galley in their honor. For some of those Marines coming aboard from the jungles of Vietnam, it was their first hot shower in 30 days. When a Department of Defense public affairs officer at the Pentagon sent a sarcastic message demanding Snyder get permission for these so-called public relations stunts, Snyder fired back that nobody in the building he called Disneyland East had first-hand experience of what those men were enduring on the ground. He signed off with 2 words that became his trademark aboard the New Jersey: "Nothing heard." The Marines who visited started calling the ship the New Jersey Hilton. On April 1, 1969, the New Jersey fired her last mission of the Vietnam deployment. 7 bunkers were destroyed 3.5 miles northeast of Con Thien. She turned her bow eastward and headed home across the Pacific. Everyone assumed she would go back. She was the most effective naval gunfire platform in the entire theater. The Marines begged for her return. The crew had already started planning the second tour. Then, on August 22, 1969, the Secretary of Defense released a list of ships to be deactivated. The USS New Jersey was at the top of that list. It was not a military decision. It was political, a signal to Hanoi during the Paris peace talks. The most decorated battleship in American history was being shut down not because she failed, but because she worked too well. At the decommissioning ceremony on December 17, 1969, Snyder spoke his final words as her captain. He said the New Jersey's guns had been stilled the only way they could have been, from within. Then he walked down the gangway and drove away from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in a powder blue Thunderbird with New Jersey state license plates reading BB-62. The New Jersey was reactivated one last time in 1982 under President Ronald Reagan's 600-ship Navy program. Reagan personally recommissioned her at Long Beach, California on December 28, 1982, making her the only American battleship ever commissioned by a sitting president. She was fitted with 32 Tomahawk cruise missiles, 16 Harpoon anti-ship missiles, and 4 Phalanx close-in weapons systems. The swimming pools on the 0-1 level were paved over to make room for the new missile launchers. She fired her 16-inch guns in anger for the last time off the coast of Beirut, Lebanon, in December 1983 and February 1984. She deployed to the Sea of Okhotsk, to Korea during the 1988 Olympics, and to the Persian Gulf. She was decommissioned for the final time on February 8, 1991, with 19 battle stars on her record. The most decorated battleship in American history. Today, the USS New Jersey sits on the Camden, New Jersey waterfront as a museum ship. You can walk her teak decks. You can stand in the gun tubs on the 0-1 level where those swimming pools used to be. The pools are gone. The man who built them, Rear Admiral J. Edward Snyder, Jr., died on November 4, 2007, at the age of 83. The steel is still there. The story is still there. And if you listen closely on the 0-1 level of the superstructure, you can almost hear a captain floating on an air mattress, proving to his crew that the water is just fine.